China is assisting Brunei in the construction of a sea bridge that, if complete, would connect Brunei's two cities. The time it takes to get from Barong to the center of Brunei has been cut in half, from 2 hours to 15. The sea crossing bridge constructed by China has aided in the economic growth of the two regions and given Brunei new optimism. But who would have imagined that Malaysia would resist such a fantastic bridge project? This is what transpired. We appreciate you seeing the video. Why don't you support China prowess? Together, let's explore more intriguing initiatives throughout the globe among all the Southeast Asian nations. Brunei is a member of a relatively wealthy nation. However, there are only roughly 400,000 people living there because of the comparatively tiny geographical area. There are two sections to Brunei's whole land. The Malaysian land bank divides the region in two, with one half in the west and the other half in the east. As a result, Brunei has a single economic system and a weak industrial base. Malay Island, an airport island in the Maldives, and this are relatively comparable. However, China was able to effectively assist the Maldives in the construction of a sea bridge in 2018 that links Malay Island with neighboring islands. Traveling between the two locations is now more convenient, and this has helped the Maldives region's economy grow. Following China's successful assistance in the Maldives' construction of the sea bridge, Brunei likewise gained confidence that the separation between its two areas was not great. Between the west and the east, there is just one Brunei Bay, which is just over 27 kilometers wide. The travel time between the two places would be reduced by more than an hour, and Brunei's economy would also benefit from the construction of a sea crossing bridge across Brunei Bay. But there just isn't enough fundamental strength for Brunei to construct a bridge over the sea. Because of this, Brunei sought assistance from China to construct a temporary sea crossing bridge after studying the Maldives' experience. But guess what? Malaysia rejected the use of wood on sea bridge during a project's development stages. This is what transpired. In actuality, Malaysia's principal objection to the construction of the temporary bridge stems from the fact that Malaysia will suffer some losses as a result. Following Brunei's declaration of independence, two regions of Brunei's territory are separated from one another by Malaysia's Limong region. It is quite difficult to travel between the two locations because there is no land crossing. The Limbang region of Malaysia serves as the primary conduit for all links between the two Bruneian countries, which can result in significant annual revenue growth for Malaysia. Future travel from the capital of Brunei to An won't require passing via Malaysia's Limbang region, which will have an effect on Malaysia to some extent after the timber on sea crossing bridge is finished. Despite this, Brunei's long-term plan calls for the construction of the Brunei Sea Bridge out of timber, which has been a goal of the countries for quite some time. Brunei is continuing to seek aid from China despite the criticism it has received from Malaysia for a number of different reasons. Therefore, is China prepared to lend assistance to Brunei in the construction of the bridge that crosses the sea? Perhaps only a small number of people are aware that Brunei and China have kept up their diplomatic connections for a significant number of centuries. In 2013, the two countries resumed their strategic cooperation relationship, and the following year, Brunei became the first nation to join China's One Belt One Road initiative. This occurred despite the fact that the collaboration had previously been disrupted due to other events. The scope of economic and commercial cooperation between China and Brunei is now expanding in a progressive manner, and Brunei's economic development has also been subjected to substantial shifts in recent years. In addition, China possesses a robust infrastructure and has just finished the construction of a number of remarkable bridges that crossed bodies of water. Because of this peaceful and cooperative relationship, China has almost surpassed the majority of nations in Europe and the United States, whether it be in terms of constructing, speed, or the quality of projects. China and Brunei have finally agreed to sign a contract for the construction of a bridge, and China will invest $380 million in the project. The temporary sea crossing bridge will be completed. The longest and most expensive piece of infrastructure that Brunei has ever constructed is a wooden drawbridge that spans 30 kilometers and costs $380 million to build. When it is built, it will be the sea bridge in Southeast Asia that spans the largest distance. Following a construction phase that lasted over 3 years with the Chinese engineering team, The traffic-bearing capacity of the Timber-on-Sea Crossing Bridge was officially increased in March of 2020. Because of this bridge, which connects Brome's two different areas, the journey that normally takes 2 hours can now be completed in just 15 minutes. This has been of considerable advantage to both the travel and the commerce that takes place between the two different sites in Brunei. China not only contributed the necessary materials for the building of the sea crossing bridge, but it also aided Brunei in the construction of the Great Morro Island Bridge, which is also a sea crossing bridge. The Big Mirror Island Bridge was Brunei's first bridge to traverse a body of water. It is an important maritime passage that links Great Morro Island with the Mora district. Since 2003, the government of Brunei has made it a priority to treat this project as an important economic development endeavor. The island's infrastructure is now undergoing development, and once completed, the island will function as a container terminal, a base for petrochemical production, and an export processing facility. However, the building of further islands has been delayed for a time due to traffic constraints that were set in order to properly develop and use the island. These limits were implemented in order to prevent overcrowding on the island. In Brunei, there is an immediate requirement for the construction of a bridge that spans the gap between the island and the mainland. The massive Mura Island Bridge is 15 meters long, has a construction price tag of over $200 million USD, and was intended to have a speed of 100 kilometers per hour. Due to the fact that China was responsible for building both bridges, construction on the permanent sea crossing bridge and the huge Mora Bridge began at the same time. At the time, there were some American engineers who were quite critical of China in the media. They were of the belief that China could not simultaneously construct two sea crossing bridges in other countries, and that China would simultaneously construct two sea crossing bridges for Brunei that would be a complete and utter failure. However, China only needed 3 years to convince the engineers that their work will be laughed at and mocked by others. The construction of the massive Mura Island Bridge in China didn't get underway until 2015. During construction, China encountered a number of difficult challenges. Because it is the first bridge that China has built in Brunei, the Great Mura Island Bridge needs to comply with the building regulations of both Brunei and Europe, which are somewhat different from the standards that govern Chinese construction. The companies of the two countries have put forth a significant amount of effort to coordinate and investigate the possibility of building a bridge. Because the construction of the massive Morro Island Bridge is also being sponsored by the government, it is essential to maintain as close of a relationship with regional companies as is practically possible during the project. However, because Brunei does not have nearly as much industrial activity as China does, the majority of the raw materials required in bridge construction must be imported. This greatly slows down the pace at which China builds bridges. After 3 years of difficult labor, the enormous Mora Island Bridge was constructed by China in 2018 as scheduled, and it was presented to the Brunei local government for approval. Once the Great Mura Island Bridge is fully open to traffic, there will be a more convenient link between the huge Morro Island and the land. This will be tremendously vital for the development of Brunei's economy. In addition, as a direct result of the two countries working together on the Cross the Bridge program, the relationship that previously existed between them has been strengthened. As a result of Brunei's collaboration with China, it is projected that the country's economic development would see a quantum jump in the not-too-distant future. Share your opinion in comments. Also, click on this video to watch about another shocking project.